bottom 3 ranked run defense on PFF and should see a heavy dose of Jacobs. The Raiders are only 2.5-point home dogs. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were favored given Mahomes' inexplicable ineptitude as a passer lately, and they could find themselves in a position to feed Jacobs with 20-plus touches. I'm feeling good about him this week. Devin Singletary is a speculative play, but one to keep on your radar if he's on your bench or even on the waiver heading into Week 10. Zach Moss is on the concussion protocol after an early exit in Sunday's embarrassing loss to the Jaguars, so if he isn't able to clear the league's 5-step protocol in order to play this week, Singletary could legitimately be in for a 3-down workload in a mouth-watering matchup against the Jets. Singletary saw his highest snap count since Week 1, when Moss was a healthy and active, and he'd see the large majority of opportunities this week if he's the lead back in Buffalo. The Bills have an implied total north of 30 points, and while Singletary's averaging a rushing touchdown, get this, per every 76 carries for his career, and that's not a joke, he's still a skilled pass catcher who should see at least 15 total looks on one of the most explosive offenses in football, or at least they were until last week. And let's be fair to Singletary. He's averaging 4.8 yards per carry for his career, and he's a very capable spot starter on any given week. The Jets have surrendered 100-plus rushing yards in 7 of 8 games and are coming off of a week where they allowed 260 yards on the ground to the Colts. And in case you're wondering, no team has allowed more receiving yards to opposing running backs this season than the Jets. That bodes well for Singletary. Here's the craziest part, though, and this is not a misquote. The Jets are allowing 40 PPR points per game to running backs. Enough said. Just a quick heads up to keep an eye on Brandon Bolden.
James Franklin, huh? All right, good morning. We appreciate you hanging with us once again as we lead you up to 1 o'clock Eastern, a busy Week 10 in the NFL. It already began for one of us, at least on Thursday night. RC's in the house, Nick's in the house. I'm Eitan. Chris is producing everything here by Yahoo. And we have a couple of great things, including a tournament to tell you about with Yahoo Sports. But look, super chats are already up here. We're going to get to them right away as soon as we hit. I can't bury the lead, RC, because of what we saw on Thursday night. The contrast, if you will, of Nick just being the Dolphins fan and refusing to believe in his team, the bet that was placed, all of this was nonsense.
Yeah. We had a glorious Twitter exchange, and I'll give Nick credit. He called it. I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, having faith in, arguably the worst team in football. Congratulations, Nick, on the victory, holding Lamar Jackson to, just mediocrity, right? And then I think the best part about it is we were talking about it before you hopped on. You had Lamar Jackson as your number 1 quarterback on the week. Right. I think that was brilliant on your part as a jinx of Lamar Jackson. You're playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. We appreciate it, Nick.
Yeah, it was a turbo jinx. I also jinxed Robert Woods. I called him a must-start receiver this week, and then he tears his ACL. So double kill from me, but it worked out. So
I'm not thankful for the Robert Woods one. That hurt a little bit. I had him everywhere.
That's going to be a big impact guy like that. Maybe we should be using Nick's jinx to our good, if you will. Like maybe the chat should be asking Nick to bless a certain game or bless a certain player. Like I'm thinking of a certain odd. Maybe I can take advantage of a bet here and just have Nick put it on. I don't call it a leprosy curse because curse is, that has a bad connotation to it. This is a good thing. We could use this for our own powers here.
Yeah, it was a reverse curse. I knew it was coming. That's why.
Right.
That's why I was so happy.
Now I see that you're not doing the show. Yes, which we need. I see you're not doing the show shirtless here. By all means, look at this.
Yeah, no, I had to put my shirt on. No one wanted to get blinded by my my pasty skin, but it is what it is,
RC, I thought he was going to pop in. Those old T-shirts you get at like the boardwalk where it's the white shirt with like the muscle.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I thought he would slide.
Yeah,
with that.
I got to give him credit though. He stuck by his team, but at the same time, Nick, you're supposed to be a man of the people. You got to be shirtless for at least the last 5 minutes of the show to make people stick around.
That might make people leave though.
Well, it's the last 5 minutes. At that point, I think we're okay, right?
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Again, playing checkers, not chess.
Right. That's true, though. You may be playing chess, not checkers, RC, trying to end the show 5 minutes early to lock in some lineups. That would be a good way, right? It's like the DJ playing a shitty song, knowing it's going to get everybody off the floor.
There you go. That's what you got to do. If you're not playing T-Pain, what are you doing?
Exactly. All right. We have a bunch, including some super chats I want to get to right away. And this is going to open up into conversations. We're going to hit Alvin Kamara. You can see Nick's rankings are going to be throughout there from quarterbacks, running backs, and anything you have for RC and Nick, we're going to hit on as much as humanly possible here over the next hour plus. Tell you about Yahoo as well. But people paying to get in, get your insight here on the super chat. We appreciate it. Definitely not necessary, but always a plus here. Overcome. Let's start. All right, Nick, you want to start RC as well. Collins or Ayuk today?
Collins or Brandon Ayuk. Overcome asked this question in my stream earlier. Probably wants RC's answer as well. Very tough scenario, in my opinion, because Brandon Ayuk, I think he's out of the doghouse, but you never know. Kyle Shanahan might just fucking throw him back in there and lock the key away. It is what it is. But Alex Collins, I'm not 100% certain. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. But Russell Wilson's finger seemed way too messed up for him to return this quickly. So I'm a little bit worried about maybe that having an impact on the game, and maybe Russ doesn't look as good. So I'd go Brandon Ayuk. I think he has a lot more upside because Alex Collins hasn't really shown all that much for us to be 100% confident in him. So I'd go Brandon Ayuk. What do you think, RC?
I'm going Alex Collins. Did y'all see what's happening up at Lambeau today?
Snow, right?
Yeah, they're expecting like 6 to 8 inches of snow. So I agree with Nick in the sense that I don't know how Russell Wilson's finger is going to look or how it's going to play and what happens. And especially in a cold weather where it's hard to grip the ball already and you have a finger injury on top of that. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to be able to do with Russell Wilson, who is proven time and time again never to bet against him. But Alex Collins is going to get carries. He's going to get dump offs today. And like Nick said, I don't know what the hell Kyle Shanahan's going to do with Brandon Ayuk. I mean, he might get 15 targets today. He might see the field for 3 snaps, and it might be all on special teams. I don't know. So I'm going to go with the sure guy in the Seattle backfield with Chris Carson not being activated from IR. He's going to be the lead guy in Alex Collins. So I'm starting Alex Collins.
Yeah, just to follow up, was looking at this earlier as far as just a prop for Ayuk's receptions on OddsShopper, and we have him on site on Awesemo. Alex has him projected for 3 receptions. So, the line was at 4.5, 3 receptions for Ayuk. That pretty much, unless one breaks, I mean, you're really relying on a small window there for that standpoint. All right, I'm going to try and hit this one here because it's a lot. All right, so let's look at Ryan's super chat. And again, we appreciate that. Crack a man in the house on the super chat as well. Thank you. Full PPR. And then we'll get into some injury stuff from Dearness to Kamara. Full PPR. So starting Stevenson, flexing Bolden. And then it looks like we'll just whittle this down and have the next 5 as an option. Knox, Agnew, Peoples, Jones, or pardon me, 4. That's one guy there, Peoples, Jones. Knox, Agnew, Peoples, Jones, or Gallup as far as start 1. Let's break that down. So RC, Knox, Agnew, Peoples, Jones, or Gallup, start 1.
Oh man, I'm interested to see Michael Gallup. I really am, in a game where I think Dallas is going to kind of take all their frustration out on the Falcons. I'm very interested to see how Dak Prescott performs today. I think he's going to try and send a message and throw for 400 yards, and Kellen Moore and the boys are just going to just make Atlanta look awful. I don't feel confident in starting him. I never want to start 2 tight ends if I can avoid it. So Dawson Knox, he'd be out of there. Man, this feels absolutely disgusting. But out of those 4 options, I think I would start Agnew. In PPR, Trevor Lawrence loves the guy. I mean, but you're also playing with the possibility if he gets 2 targets because Jacksonville can't throw the football.
Yeah, I would go with Dawson Knox. And I do love Dawson Knox this week, actually. Dawson Knox was just on fire for the last couple of weeks, and I'm not afraid to go double tight end. So that's kind of my answer on that. I don't love really any of these guys. Agnew, I don't know about him too much. And then Peoples Jones, he has the upside, though, to score like 20 points, but he might also score 2 points in this game. And then Gallup, I'm not 100% sold that he's going to be seeing all that many targets. If Schultz sees some work, then we'll see a decent amount of the ball probably not going Gallup's way. So I'd probably just go ahead and play Knox and hope he scores and hope he's 100% healthy.
All right. So this opens up the second part of Ryan's super chat. And again, definitely not necessary, but we always appreciate that. Is the question about Mark Ingram, and Alvin Kamara is out. So now we're just trying to figure out how the Saints offense is impacted, as well as Mark Ingram specifically, because it's not like people drafted him in the first 2 rounds or so. So with that said, the question is Ingram or Mitchell. And I think for both of you guys, Nick will throw it right back, RC as well. Let's look at this specifically from the Ingram or Mitchell standpoint, but also it opens up for both of you and really the show here, what to do as a result of Alvin Kamara being out.
Yeah, I'll go first here. So with Alvin Kamara out, I am pretty worried about the Saints offense, if I'm being honest with you. Alvin Kamara is such a key piece inside this offense. I think Mark Ingram will succeed in fantasy football. The guy is good, and he has looked good thus far this season when he wasn't on the Houston Texans. So I think he could have a good game, but I'd personally lean with Elijah Mitchell. We know his role in this offense. I think they could potentially keep this game close with the LA Rams. And even in the games where the 49ers are getting blown out, they still run the ball with Elijah Mitchell. So I think he's very safe. And I think both these guys have top 5 upside, but I'd personally lean with Mitchell. What do you think, RC? Yes, no, maybe so.
He was just
muted right there. That was all on me.
I threw an alley-oop to him.
All good.
Didn't answer.
Yeah. Well, I had to hang time. Michael Jordan from the half-court line in Space Jam, Nick. No, I think for me, I definitely go Mitchell. But to your point on the Saints offense, being a Titans fan, I fully expect today that the Saints are just going to somehow make this Titans defense look terrible, even with Trevor Siemian, because it's a letdown game after what happened in LA. And the Titans do struggle against the run. I know you didn't get to see that last week against that front for the LA Rams that struggled, but I like both of them this week. I don't think you can really go wrong. If I do have to pick between the two, I will go with Elijah Mitchell just because I think he's a little bit more explosive, has more of that big play potential. But Mark Ingram's going to get all the carries, man. I mean, he is going to get every single carry in that backfield. And I think he, like Nick says, has top 5. Maybe that's a stretch in my opinion, but top 10 for sure. Both of them are easy starts for me if you had the option. I don't know if it's the same lineup. He said he was starting Stevenson. I'm starting Mark Ingram and Mitchell over the guys that he mentioned before that. I don't know if it's the same lineup, but just in case it is.
No, I think it's different because it's like one of them is he's starting Stevenson, I think, as a running back, and then he said flex those players and then flex. I assume that's for another week. So
just making sure, but putting that context out. But I agree. I just think it is another lineup. Yeah,
we saw a couple. Sorry, Phaeton was about to talk, but last year and the seasons prior, when Alvin Kamara went down, Latavius Murray played so well in that system. Like he was dropping 30 plus points in those games. And I think that Latavius Murray and Mark Ingram are pretty comparable. So I think Mark Ingram really does have that top 5 upside. I wanted to kind of bury that into the ground, my expectation of him.
Yeah, and now what happens with the offense around? I mean, it's Trevor Siemian clearly, and I don't know, maybe in 2 quarterback leagues, if you're streaming a second quarterback and it's so deep that you have to look and maybe scrape for him. But if you're in a 1 quarterback league and you're streaming for a guy like Trevor Siemian, you're probably shit out of luck, right, at this point. So what about anybody else in this offense as far as skill guys, wide receiver, really looking at that specifically because Alvin Kamara is such a heavy involvement in the passing game that even if you take 10 to 15 attempts away that you would normally have with the Jameis Winston to Trevor Siemian, let's say, you're still going to have now without Kamara more of that balance back to where it could be spread out. Does that make sense, RC, as far as like looking at now the absence of Kamara in the passing game as opposed to just with Ingram as the clear pivot now in the rushing game?
No doubt. I think the name that's by far the most interesting is Marquez Callaway, right? We've seen the potential there and everything, and just the options that they have. Harris is more of that boom or bust kind of, hey, maybe there's a big play for 75 yards because he breaks a tackle, but I'm not trusting him. But in all honesty, I don't know if I want to start anybody on the Saints offense outside of Mark Ingram. It just feels kind of gross. And the way that the Titans are playing on defense, I know what I just said about them as a fan, but realistically, they've been arguably the hottest defense outside of maybe the Miami Dolphins defense the past 2 weeks. Shout out to Nick on that one for calling that and jinxing Lamar. Thanks, man. But no, yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to is I'm starting Mark Ingram. And if I am desperate, Marquez Callaway, that's it. I'm not even remotely even going close to anybody else.
Yeah, I agree. There is no way I want to be touching anyone else on the Saints offense. It seems like every single week people try to talk themselves into like Troutman or Callaway or, Deontay Harris, maybe he'll have a good game. I don't know. There seems like there's just so many options available at wide receiver in fantasy football that if you have to play Marquez Callaway, you're pretty screwed in my opinion. So I would definitely look basically everywhere else besides the rest of the Saints offense, kind of like RC was saying.
All right, let's look at another super chat here from Nathaniel. Thank you. We're going to keep pounding away here with injuries, actives, inactives, a lot of start-sit questions that we'll get to throughout. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, please, if you haven't already. Seen more and more eyes popping in here. And look, subscribe as well to what we're doing on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. It's not just our show. We're around during the week. There's VOD, video on demand content, and just continuing to get you ready each week for your season-long squad. And finally, look, we have 2 links for you below this video from Yahoo. $10 free just to mess around with. You don't need to be new. Just jump in, take that money, and play with it. And if you are new to Yahoo, then you can get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum free upon your first deposit and contest entry. It's really easy to maneuver and really to get in, not nearly as sharp as they say on Yahoo by all means. All right, so this is Nathaniel's super chat. Debo, DK, we know Russ is back. Deontay, we know Big Ben is out. So that may, depending on how much trust you have in the backup, but also the fact that, look, it's not like they're not going to throw against Detroit. I would think, and, you know, just looking at this here, RC, you want to start Nick as well. Debo would probably, actually, I don't know. I would think that Debo would be the guy that if you ran this, you'd get to more often than not. But with Russ back, DK does seem appealing.
Yeah, it's just that weather aspect, right? That we go back to with the snow up in Green Bay. I think Deebo Samuel is a lock in terms of just the matchup and everything. I don't think he's going to have to deal with Jalen Ramsey as much, who doesn't move around. That defense just typically stays on one side when it comes down to it. Also, I think they're just going to hyper-target him regardless with George Kittle in the mix as well. With DK and Deontay, it's interesting to me because, yes, Deontay by far has the better matchup, right? You're playing the Detroit Lions. They're hot garbage. We all know that. But do they just give the ball to Najee Harris like 30 times this game? Like, do we even see that many pass attempts? And again, you have options out there because you got Muth out there. Pat Fryermuth, I mean, he's coming out. And when you talk about a backup quarterback, usually they go to those tight ends or the star wide receiver. And I guess Deontay Johnson is the star wide receiver there. But I'm worried that maybe they just give 30 carries to Najee Harris, who did pop up on the injury report, but will play. I believe it was a foot issue that he had. But, yeah, I'd probably go Deontay and then Debo and feel absolutely disgusting with myself once DK Metcalf scores like 25 points up at Lambeau.
Yeah, my rankings, I have Deontay at 10, DK at 11, and Debo at 12. So it's basically as up in the air as it gets, to be honest with you. You could probably shift slightly to move one over the other. To me, it's like very, very close. I would go, based upon my rankings, I would go with Deontay Johnson and DK Metcalf. I really do hope that Russell Wilson's hand is okay. That really does worry me, especially in the snow that we're supposed to be seeing. So it is kind of up there between DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel, but I do think that Deontay Johnson will get the ball in this game, even if Kyle Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, is the starter. I mean, what's his real name, actually? It's not Kyle Rudolph.
Mason, I think, right?
Mason Rudolph.
Also, State's finest.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph. So
look, you may be better off with Kyle Rudolph throwing the football. Tight ends usually have an arm.
What would you call that? Like you call the Wildcat, the running back aspect? What would be the tight end version? Like, how would that work?
I don't know. They'd probably something stupid like play off of Rudolph, like reindeer.
Oh,
maybe that. Wildcat. It's somewhat of is a wildcat an animal, or is that
what
just
about the
like,
sleigh offense?
I think it's an animal.
The sleigh, yeah, that works.
He's the leader of the sleigh.
Right. Yeah, you can't go like red nose.
I don't know. You can't blitz either, right? Like Rudolph and Blitzen are like good friends and everything, right? So you can't blitz against that package either.
Nope. You're blitz free.
It's a cheat code.
Nick's like, fuck, man. I wasn't here to talk Santa Claus. All right, let's look at another question here. And Nick, why don't you chunk into this here, because it opens up the conversation as well about D'Ernest and what to do now with Cleveland, really beyond just him, where we've seen this already, right? We've seen this script. Both guys are out. He steps in. The carries and volume should be there. But also as far as, what happens with this offense around him. And I saw the specific question, but they keep firing in here. All right. Well, let's just start there with Dearness, pardon me, and then we can kind of look at there for another one.
Okay, yeah. So with Dearness Johnson, I'm very confident in him. We saw him play a couple of weeks ago without Nick Chubb, without Kareem Hunt in that game up against the Denver Broncos, and the guy just dominated. So going up against the Patriots defense, you would have to expect that he's going to have a big showing here. He is like the most chalk play ever on DFS this week, but I'm eating the chalk. I love Dearness Johnson up against the Patriots. I actually think this is going to be a lot higher scoring of a game than a lot of people think. A lot of people project this to be a low scoring game. I think this one could be a little bit higher scoring, and I think Dearness Johnson is involved early. He's involved basically throughout the whole game. So I love Johnson here. What are you thinking, RC?
I mean, I think that he could easily be the number one running back on the week, right? Like there's nobody with competition for him in that backfield. So yeah, he's a chalk play, but put him in their lineup and just capitalize off this 1 week. And who knows, maybe if he performs well enough, Nick Chubb, we had those injuries concerns, maybe it turns into a 60-40 split until Kareem Hunt comes back or whatever happens. But I think for Dearness Johnson, the matchup is there in the sense that it just feels like Cleveland is trying to prove everybody wrong offensively about this Odell Beckham stuff,
yes,
which I think will open up the run game a little bit more for Dearness Johnson, because I think teams like the Patriots, for example, are going to try and take away some of these passing options for the Cleveland Browns today. So I expect Dearness to be absolutely electric today. I have him as a top 5 back this week in terms of just what I think he finishes there because there's no competition for him. I mean, the only guy that can carry the ball other than him is Baker Mayfield or maybe Jarvis Landry on a sweep at this point. So, yeah, I'm starting Dearness everywhere I have him. I was shocked when I got him off waivers this week and plugged him right away in there. Thank you, because I needed that. I lost Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, it's amazing that with Kamara gone, but I guess, in other leagues, depending on how that would play out, the availability of it. But yeah, I definitely get that sense with this offense where Stefanski's out here trying to prove a point as much as possible, especially because Beckham signs on with a good team and has a shot with Robert Woods being out. And maybe we segue into that there. I know you were mentioning, RC, that you got killed with Robert Woods being out. A lot of exposure, it seems like, season-long leagues to Woods.
Yeah, no, he was I was actually coming in here with a question today before the news dropped yesterday. I had it written out and everything. Who would y'all start, Jerry Jeudy or Robert Woods? I think y'all are all going to take Jerry Jeudy now.
Yep.
But Robert Woods was one of those guys where, to me, he's not flashy, anything like that. But the news is just devastating because I don't think anybody on that roster can go in and fill the role that he has. Yeah, you get Odell Beckham, but I think the winner in all of this, even when Odell gets acclimated to the offense, is Van Jefferson. If Van Jefferson is available on your waiver wire and you can add somebody before Sunday games start, I would go get him right now, because the worry was, okay, you're going to have Cooper Kupp, who we know he's going to get a 27 to 30% target share every week. It's just locked in, right? Robert Woods, Odell Beckham, and then Van Jefferson. Now you don't have to worry about Robert Woods. I think Van Jefferson is that wide receiver 2. Odell Beckham's going to be the wide receiver 3 on this team, in my opinion. And I think Van Jefferson on the Rams offense is a guy that you could play at your flex spot virtually every week with how good the Rams offense is. So if he's available, go scoop him up right now before lineups lock.
Yeah, I agree. I love Van Jefferson, and I think as well as most people, probably cut Van Jefferson after Odell signed there. So he's definitely available in a lot of leagues. I'll tell you that much.
He's hanging on the back end of my roster right now. I'm wide receiver heavy, but he's hanging there. I dropped my guy Quez for Van. This was before the Woods / OBJ flip flop, if you will. But I feel a little bit better about him hanging now at the bench with RC breaking it down. All right. Yeah. So real quick, before we get to a bunch of these start sits, Super Chat, Overcome back, and a trade question. So people looking at something similar, maybe with similar names at least involved in this. We know that this thing can go down. So with time pending, trade JJ. Nick, why don't you start? Trade JJ and Javonte for Deontay and Henderson.
Yeah. So JJ, that's Justin Jefferson, right? You assume? That's what I think, right? Okay. So Justin Jefferson and Javonte for Deontay and Henderson. I would do that because I think that as long as Melvin Gordon is there is absolutely zero chance that Javonte Williams just takes the job, right? We're already 10 weeks in the season. It's not happening at this point. So I believe that Deontay has the opportunity to be a top 12 receiver. I think Henderson could be a top 12 running back at the end of the year. And I think Justin Jefferson will be a top 12 receiver. But will Javonte Williams be a top 12 running back? Probably not, right? So I think you're getting much better pieces if you do that trade. I love Deontay Johnson. I understand that without Big Ben, maybe this week it's a little bit worrisome, but my assumption is that Big Ben is back by at least next week. And then Darrell Henderson, even with losing Robert Woods, this is still a very high octane offense. This is going to be a great offense all season long. So I do expect Henderson to be really good. So I definitely lean Henderson and Deontay. So I'm doing the trade. What do you think, RC?
I'm right there with you. I'm 100% doing this trade, especially if it's in PPR. I mean, Deontay Johnson is as safe as they come in PPR. I mean, he's one of those guys where I don't even question it. Even somewhat, I feel kind of gross even questioning with a backup quarterback in Mason Rudolph. I think that he's going to get hyper targeted. He does every week because really nobody on the Pittsburgh Steelers in the quarterback room for them has any kind of NFL arm at this point. They're absolutely shot. Deontay Johnson is one of those guys that can capitalize off of that. And as Nick mentioned, Henderson is already a top 12 back. We know Sean McVay loves to run the football. There were some rumors going around that Cam Akers is going to try and make a return in the late season, even after tearing his Achilles. I wouldn't buy into any of that because, I mean, I love Cam Akers, but that's superhuman type stuff. I mean, Superman would be jealous of that. But I'm definitely taking this trade if it's offered. I love Justin Jefferson as well. But you have a lot of key fantasy pieces in that Minnesota offense. And yeah, Kirk Cousins has done a good job of keeping Adam Thielen involved as well as Dalvin Cook. But we know that they love to run the football, and that offense goes through Dalvin Cook up in Minnesota. So JJ is a third option some weeks, maybe the second option. I think Deontay Johnson and Henderson are really the go-to options a lot of weeks outside of maybe, the Cooper Kupp conundrum out there. Because how are they getting so many breakfasts together? Like, the wives not jealous of Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford? What's going on at this point?
Yeah, they have like a first reservation at IHOP every morning or some shit like that. I don't know.
Those pancakes must
be busting. You can't wait online, man. You can't be seen waiting online at IHOP. No knock on IHOP. It's just, you get subject to autograph requests and stuff. So you have, you may be onto something. And think about that. You avoid the autographs. You get out. Maybe the wives are sleeping in.
I don't know. Take care of the kids either. I mean, this is, again, chess, not checkers by these guys.
What time does IHOP open? Do we know? Are they at 24/7, John? I haven't been there in a long time.
I don't think IHOP is 24/7. Maybe it is actually.
You here in Texas.
Everything's 24/7 in Texas.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Shit doesn't close down there.
Built different here.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned Thielen and Cousins clearly in response to the Justin Jefferson question. Saw this, and we're going to slam through a bunch of these here, get back to some rankings, and get right back to your start sit. So they're not going anywhere. Again, the super chats we appreciate by all means. But let's start earlier here where we had a question specifically to Thielen. And this is Walltown Best 88. Would you start Thielen or Kettle? I think that's Kittle, right?
No, we're starting the kettle, the thing that makes your tea.
Look, I don't know. Maybe over Kittle at this point with that offense. But RC, you were talking about Thielen kind of, staying involved with Kirk Cousins. I don't know if that's a specific play you would have over Kittle or Kettle.
I'm trying to figure out who they have at tight end if they're not starting George Kittle, But at that point, I mean, yeah, I'm probably going to start George Kittle. And I know what I said earlier in the show in the sense that I don't like starting two tight ends, but George Kittle built different, just like the state of Texas. I'm going to start him over Adam Thielen. And I love the matchup that Adam Thielen has, right? The Los Angeles Chargers, that's a very good matchup to have as a wide receiver, a lot of points potentially on the board. But I don't think it would surprise anybody if George Kittle gets, 10 to 12, maybe even more targets in a game where I expect them to be playing from behind against the Los Angeles Rams for maybe a majority of this game. So I'm going to start George Kittle in this situation. What about you, Nick?
Oh, we already know he's Mr. 12 personnel.
Oh, there we go.
No, I'm not going Kittle. We're going with the other way. We're going with Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen just scores a touchdown like every single week at this point. The guy is just a menace in the red zone. They're going to give him the ball a bunch. I like George Kittle as well. This is a very tough scenario. And like RC said, who are you going to be starting over George Kittle, right? Do they have like Kelsey and Kittle or something? Because otherwise it doesn't make very much sense that Kittle isn't playing in your starting lineup. But I would go with Adam Thielen. I think Adam Thielen could score 20 plus points in this game. I love the Minnesota Vikings. So go ahead and play Mr. Adam Thielen.
All right, Nick, let's throw it back. Ayuk, Marvin Jones, or Javonte? One. We'll assume full PPR until told otherwise.
Okay, so Javonte, in my opinion, is the safest bet. Ayuk is the riskiest bet with the highest upside, and I normally am a high upside kind of guy, so I'm going with Brandon Ayuk. Again, he may be in the doghouse, may have escaped the doghouse. I don't know. It's definitely up in the air every single week. Kyle Shanahan is an absolute madman, but I would go with Brandon Ayuk and just hope that he's been kind of escaped that doghouse and truly is out. What do you think in RC?
Javonte. They're playing the Eagles.
Yep.
It's really that simple for me. I mean, you can run against the Eagles, you can throw against the Eagles. It doesn't matter. They don't have a defense. I mean, I'm starting Javonte. I don't even think Melvin Gordon is a deterrent for me in this. Like, both of them could easily get 12 to 15 carries, and it wouldn't surprise me if they each get 75 yards and a TD. Like, I'm going to start Javonte. I get the risk aspect of it. I just wish it was a little less risky on the Brandon Ayuk side, because Brandon Ayuk is, like we've talked about multiple times, it would not shock anybody if he only plays on special teams in this game on Monday night, but it also wouldn't shock anybody else if he gets 12 to 13 targets. Like, there's no in between with this guy. And if that's what you need on Monday night, by all means, go for it. Maybe you can just wait this out a little bit until about 3:00, right before this Denver game starts. See what happens early on in your lineup. Do you need more of a boom bust kind of guy, or do you need a safe play? If you need the safe play, I'm going to start Javonte Williams. If I need a little bit more high upside, I'll start Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah, especially because Williams, and look, last week they were up by 1 million points against the Cowboys, so it's a little bit of an outlier. But before that, you just look, he is being targeted at least 3 times, if not more, 3+ times, really, since the start of or middle of September. So you're getting those looks, and I would look at that and bump it up 1.5 to maybe 2 targets against the Eagles, because Teddy Bridgewater is going to have all day to throw. And we already know how accurate he is, and he's not going to throw deep downfield. Williams, I wouldn't be shocked at all if this is a 6-7 target game for Williams.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Something I wanted to bring up real quick. I know this is completely off topic, but Carson Wentz is playing today, and his child is being born today. So Carson Wentz is about to have, it's not a revenge game. It's a birth of your child game. He's going to go off. I believe in him.
So the child, okay, here's the thing. The child hasn't technically been born yet, right? And he made a decision with his wife that he's going to play through labor if she happens to go into labor, and that he won't miss today. He won't miss, I think, next week as well, right? Yeah. So are you saying this is like the same superhuman strength that comes from like when Brett Favre played the Monday night following the death of his father, like some sort of off-field moment that is powering him to be superhuman against the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I 100% believe so. It's like when
it's his second daughter now.
Yeah, it's like in college football, like when like the mascot dies, then you instantly bet on that team. They're going to win. So that's my opinion here. I love Carson Wentz this week, and I think he goes off against the Jaguars. So just thought
I do have an interesting like idea here. They're playing Jacksonville, right? Like this is one of the highest over-unders of the week. Let's say at halftime it's 28-3. Just hypothetically, right? And he gets word at halftime like, "Hey, I'm going into labor." He bounces, right? Like, you got to bounce.
No, not when you're a football guy like Carson Wentz. You go and play the game.
You bounce if it's 28-3. Come on, man. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not coming back.
Yeah, Chris just said, not for the second kid. He's already seen his first kid be born.
Not for the second kid.
Yeah, but that's my point. Okay, so look, and Chris knows better than all of us here combined on the chat. Chris has multiple children. I have just brought in one. Well, my wife did, but I was kind of there for support. We have one small child, right? 4.5 to 5 months in between that time frame. And everything is like, oh my God, the kid's going to die. Like, do whatever you can. You know, he doesn't have a blanket on him on top of the coat. He's going to die. And everybody tells you, including my in-laws here who have 2 young girls now, everybody, and Chris has made this known as well, that once you have the second kid, it's like, don't worry about it. Oh, he got shot in the leg. Don't worry about it. He'll be okay. Put a Band-Aid on it. Like, the contrast is night and day different. So I don't know, Nick. I think we just expect regular. Now, he's going against the Jags. They're a 10.5-point home favorite. I get that. But this may just be like he's not even going to be there. They already decided ahead of time he's not even going to be there for the birth of the second child. Maybe that should be an indicator that he's just focusing on football right now.
Yeah, it's like that meme of Michael Jordan where it says, fuck them kids. That's basically what Carson Wentz is doing.
Yes.
One of the greatest gifts of all time.
Yeah, he's provided a couple by all means.
But I do want to throw this out about Carson Wentz. Like, what happens if it's the opposite, right? Like, what about if it's like, fuck this second kid and he just plays terrible and he, resents this kid for the rest of his life or her life, I guess.
Ooh, her life. Yeah, her life. Ooh.
I don't think anybody's talking about that.
Here's the only thing that matters in your equation, RC. And this is what the three of us, I think, have to figure out. If that's the case, then does it impact him today? Because if it doesn't impact him today, then we just treat it like regular Wentz. If it does impact him today, then maybe the annoyance and the frustration of you're going to be born on my day where I'm playing football. Maybe that does go back to Nick's initial point and fuels him to a 35, 40-point day. Exactly. Spite is a beautiful motivator.
Man, for an unborn child at that point. Wow. Carson Wentz. Unbelievable.
This poor guy. He's driving around with a converted truck, giving food to the homeless. He's an animal on this show because of Nick.
Yeah.
No, I guess that was me. I'll take the blame for it. All right. It's an interesting thought, though, as far as where do you have him ranked? Real quick, before we move back to the chat, we have a bunch we're going to get to here on the start sits for you all. But where do you have him? I'm just curious where you guys have him ranked. Nick, you want to start? Where you do have Wentz ranked this week?
Wentz is my quarterback number 10. Right below him is Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. Above him is Jalen Hurts and Aaron Rodgers. The only thing that does slightly worry me is that I love Jonathan Taylor so much this week. I believe he's my running back number 1. And obviously, if they run the ball a shit ton, then Carson Wentz won't be able to have as good of a game. But I still do believe in the birth narrative that he's going to have a huge game. What are you thinking, RC? Where you got him ranked?
I love it.
I think you have him properly ranked right there. I mean, it's going to be one of those deals, though, where I don't think it would shock me if Carson Wentz only throws for maybe, 220 and 1 touchdown. Because, like you mentioned, Jonathan Taylor might go off for $175 and 3 TDs in this game. Like, Jacksonville is terrible against the run. I think it will be a Jonathan Taylor game, but I'm confident that when he does throw Carson Wentz, it'll go to Michael Pittman because, well, he just loves to hyper target that guy, and T.Y. is back as well. But I think Carson Wentz at number 10 is a really solid ranking. I could see him falling down a little bit, though, if Jonathan Taylor steals that first touchdown or 2 against Jacksonville and they just go run heavy. So I would be aware of that, but I'm still starting Carson Wentz if I have.
All right. Yeah, it's interesting. Just one more thing to factor in here. We haven't seen this play out yet, and I wonder if they're up, if it does against the Jaguars. Although, again, we didn't see this play out last week where they were up. Carson Wentz, if he plays 75% of the snaps, then the Colts' first-round pick goes to the Eagles. If he plays 70% and they make the playoffs, it goes to the Eagles. Now, they played 9 games, and he's played 100% of the snaps in all but week 2. So I don't think this is something you would factor in quite yet, but at some point, don't you think it's organizational malpractice if you're not going to make the playoffs to continue to parade this guy out here when you're giving up a first-round pick?
Kind of, but they haven't shown any signs of wanting to take him out, right? We haven't seen that at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll off the assumption that they don't take him out and that he plays the whole game, because why would they do that? That would only make a lot of sense.
It is the Colts.
It is the Colts, right?
Yeah.
And they're not at 500 quite yet.
Exactly.
All right, let's get back to a couple of here and hit that thumbs up, please, if you haven't already. We appreciate you hanging with us on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. The 2 links below from Yahoo where you can get $10 free just to play around with. And also, if you're brand new to Yahoo, you still haven't jumped in, we are giving you this link, and you sign up, 1 paid contest entry. We're going to give you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All right, RC, let's start. Lockett or A.J. Brown?
Oh, AJ. You're never taking AJ out of your lineup, especially with no Julio. He could get 15 targets today. Yeah, I don't care if Marshawn Lattimore's guarding him or not. You got to start AJ Brown. That being said, I do love me some Tyler Lockett today. I'm a little higher on him than other people. I think that he's a top 15 wide receiver, even in the snow, because I do think Russell Wilson is going to try and prove a point that he's just built different. That finger's not really anything to worry about. And even in the snow, he's going to take a couple deep shots. And I think Tyler Lockett could be the beneficiary. But A.J. Brown, no doubt, out of those two.
Yeah, I agree. 100% A.J. Brown. He's been shitting in the toilet, shitting on the enemies on the football field. I love A.J. Brown this week. I expect a very big game out of him. Without Derrick Henry, their run game is just not good at all. Like, I was surprised Adrian Peterson scored last week. So I think that we should see a huge game out of Brown. Kind of like
that was a really good Chipotle joke, Nick.
Yeah, I know.
That was a really solid one.
It was, I mean, and it wasn't like obvious either.
No, it was right there to the point.
It wasn't forced.
It was very subtle. No, it wasn't forced. It came out with ease. I appreciate that.
It usually does with Chipotle, you know what I mean?
From Aton. Goddamn.
Oh my God. See what you do here. All right, Brian on the chat. Let's throw it back to Nick to start. Van Jefferson or Beasley? Full PPR.
Van Jefferson or Beasley? I would go Beasley. Beasley is not the most. I think Van Jefferson has the higher upside, but I'd go with Cole Beasley. It's not that Emmanuel Sanders has been like dethroned, right? He still has value. He's still getting targets. It just seems like Cole Beasley's the clear number 2 guy there. And with Stephon Diggs just not living up to my expectations, I assume your guys' expectations either, right? We all thought he had the potential to be like a top 5 receiver, maybe the number 1 wide receiver. So he hasn't been playing all that great, but I would definitely lean Cole Beasley. What do you think in RC?
I think I'm going to go Van Jefferson on this one, just because the New York Jets. I think the Bills,
the jumbo Jets,
after last week, they're going to want to prove something here, right? You go down to Jacksonville and you lay an egg. I think they're going to try and prove that they are still considered the best offense in the NFL, and they'll do it early. But I worry that if Cole Beasley doesn't get his in the first half, then he's just not going to be able to get it. I think Van Jefferson, the 49ers will keep it a little bit closer than the Jets will. And I think they're going to try and use him a little bit more, because how much is Odell actually going to be able to play in this game? Like, how much are they going to want to use him after really,
not much,
2 days of practice? So Van Jefferson has at least been there. Cooper Kupp's going to get a lot of work, as well Henderson as well. But I think Van Jefferson is in line for 7 targets in that range. And hopefully he can get you 60 yards and maybe 5 catches and maybe scoot his way into the end zone.
Yeah, something tells me real quick that I think Odell might just get force-fed in this game, like to prove Baker wrong or some shit like that.
It is your week. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a hot start. You had him at number 1. You jinxed the man. I mean, you're on fire right now.
Yeah,
so
well,
maybe jam rules.
I have Josh Allen in all my DFS lineups, so prepare for another shitty game out of that game.
Oh, Bills are losing at this point.
Oh, great. All right, I am benching Zach Moss.
I had all Josh Allen last week, too.
Let me go bench Zach Moss real quick.
But as a Dolphins fan, it works.
It does. Although you're not alone this time, because I saw here, at least in PA, you get these emails, right, from the PR people at the books. And 2 different books have super high liability on the Jets money line. So you're not alone in this, Nick. Somebody either put a suitcase down there, or a bunch of people pulled together and make sure that they put a lot of money on the Jets as well here. I saw so Schefter earlier this morning put out that the Rams have discussed using Beckham as an occasional punt returner Monday night as part of a package of plays designed for him. So I don't know if you're looking at snap count or if you're just looking at easing him in. Being a punt returner would satisfy that quota. So that may even further the point that you really shouldn't expect a ton from him. And then what's the reward if you roster him? You're not going to get a full outing from him, right? You're not going to get a full targets worth like Kupp, for example. So I just don't know what to even expect from OBJ this week. Moving forward, I think the spite game is definitely one to play. Like, that's in full effect. If it's working with Stefanski, as RC brought up, I think it's going to work here personally. Like, Beckham's probably going to be angrier on the Rams than he was when he first joined the Browns.
Yeah, another Michael Jordan meme. I took that personally. That's another meme there.
We could do the whole show off shit jokes and MJ memes.
And I think at the same time, too, like, you look at the Rams' schedule, I mean, they have an off week next week. They're on the bye. So, like, that will allow OBJ to get acclimated a little bit. I don't think you want to force him into the game, even though he's only been in the facility for 2 or 3 days. Allow him to go out there, punt return, kick return, whatever. But I don't see him being used very much. And that goes back to my point of liking Van Jefferson. If Robert Woods was playing, I'd be off of Van Jefferson a little bit more. But with Van Jefferson there and being the clear-cut wide receiver too with no Robert Woods, I feel really comfortable starting him. And if he's available on your waivers, like I said earlier, I think he's a plug-and-play option.
Gotcha.
All right, let's look at this. One's interesting because it talks about two different guys, situations where I think Tyler Johnson's value decreases now that Chris Godwin is playing. And also DJ Moore's value has decreased because of the inconsistency at the quarterback spot in Carolina. He's still DJ Moore. So the question is Johnson or DJ in this one. I would think, and RC, will start with you, my friend. I would think that this would be a heavy lean to DJ Moore simply just because, yeah, there's uncertainty at the quarterback spot, but it's DJ Moore on that team.
Yeah, DJ Moore is, in my opinion, one of the most talented wide receivers in football, just in an abysmal situation, right? That being said, I think PJ Walker, he's going to go in and he's going to hyper target two guys in this game, and it's going to be DJ Moore and obviously Christian McCaffrey. So I'm starting DJ Moore with confidence this week in terms of a flex position. I think you have to decrease your expectations from where you drafted him. I know some people probably went RB heavy and maybe even had DJ Moore as their wide receiver 1. Probably wide receiver 2, if we're being honest. But I look at him as a strong flex play this week. And as you mentioned, Tyler Johnson, I mean, he loses a lot of appeal with Chris Godwin back in the mix. So start your studs. DJ Moore is that. You just have to hope that PJ Walker hyper targets him and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd play DJ Moore as well. DJ Moore started off so hot, and same with Sam Darnold, and now he's just ice cold. Let's hope that next week, do they have a game next week? Whatever the fuck Cam Newton gets to start, let's hope that kind of turns the tide here, because I think DJ Moore could have a strong push.
Did y'all see that? Cam Newton might be active today.
I think he is active. Like, I think they're going to dress him.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And look, I mean, PJ, I know he comes from the XFL and all, but PJ did play with under Matt Rule in Temple, and there is a connection there. So as you guys both know, you have something like that from the college to, and it doesn't matter if it's the quarterback or a linebacker or what have you, anybody in between, there may be a little bit more of a benefit here. I don't know if you guys even anticipate Cam playing today, just the fact that he's dressed.
I do think it's interesting on DJ Moore. Just looking at the schedule ahead, they obviously play the Cardinals today. They have a good defense, but they play Washington next week and then the Dolphins. Like, maybe the Dolphins are back to being that legit defense. I'm still a little suspect about it. But if he has a bad game today, I'd probably go try and shop and buy low on DJ Moore and see if you can capitalize on some value in season long.
Yeah, I think DJ Moore, I would not want to trade him away, if I'm being honest with you. I think that if you held him this long, did you say that you wanted to hold him? My bad.
No. I think trading for him. No, I'm right there with you. Though, like in the sense of like holding on to him too. Like I think he's a stud.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, I thought you said something completely different. What I was gonna say is that if people held on to him this long, like there's no way you get rid of him now. So I'm sorry, my brain doesn't work sometimes. It's okay.
No, you're good.
It happens to all of us on this show. Sometimes in back-to-back moments. All right,
still living off that high from Thursday night.
See, exactly. He is, yeah. He's trying to sneak by you without taking his shirt off. Not that I want to see that. Just give us the trigger warning, and we'll turn our heads.
Just wait. One day I'm just going to show up with no shirt. And I'm not going to tell you guys either. That'll be even better if I don't tell you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to just – it's not like you can sneak up on somebody like that. It's not like you're not wearing pants or sneakers or socks or a watch.
You wear pants when you're on here? You're wearing pants when you're on here? Shorts. I never wear pants.
I'm not surprised at that.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at that at all. All right, it's Roberto on the super chat. Flex PPR. Judy, McKissick, Dearness Johnson. All right, Nick, there you go. Judy McKissick or Dearness Johnson.
I'm playing Dearness Johnson. I love Jerry Jeudy now, though. I was so wrong. I was like, Cortland Sutton, he'll be just fine. Not true at all. Cortland Sutton is fucking screwed with Jerry Jeudy back. So I would lean Dearness Johnson, though. Again, we really hammered into him early on in the live stream talking about his potential this week. I think without Nick Chubb, this is a very easy spot to see a potential top 5 game out of him. He did it up against the Broncos, and I think he could do it here up against the Patriots defense. RC, you leaning with me, or are you going a different way?
Yeah, I found this tweet really interesting. So Cortland Sutton in 3 games with Jerry Jeudy, right? He has 12.3 total fantasy points.
Sutton does.
12.3 total. That's Cortland Sutton when Jerry Jeudy plays.
Yeah,
in the 6 games without Jerry Jeudy, he had 16.9 fantasy points per game.
Wow.
Like, Jerry Jeudy is the number 1 target there. in Denver, and it's not even close. So I love Jerry Jeudy, but in this situation, man, I have to start Dearness Johnson. I mean, I think that he could easily be RB1 on the week. So I'm starting Dearness Johnson. If I can somehow figure out a way to get Jerry Jeudy in my lineup against an abysmal Philadelphia Eagles secondary, I'm doing it.
It's true.
But Dearness Johnson, I think, is the play.
So on that game, I'm just curious for both of you guys, real quick, Nick, just to follow up on this, and you could start by all means. The total is dipped really a 1.5 since it's opened. It's down to 44.5. So it's been betting as an under. But if either or both of you guys see this as an over game, and I guess 1A, Denver scoring, doing the majority of the work to get to that over, then I think you can make a really good argument, especially here with Dearness Johnson as another opportunity for Jerry Jeudy, because somebody's going to eat on this defense. And if it's not, and based on the numbers that RC laid out with Sutton, it's not going to be Noah Fant here. And he's a good play, don't get me wrong, but he wouldn't be my number one contributor here. You don't have Darius Slay either for the Philadelphia Eagles, their top cornerback. I think really Jerry Jeudy, and maybe I'm just biased because it's my team and I know how shitty they are, but I think Jerry Jeudy here, and look, it's not like slam Jeudy over Dearness, but I could make an argument for Jerry Jeudy over those other two guys for sure.
Yeah, I agree. You can definitely make an argument for that. I think there's a lot of unknown with Dearness Johnson. I mean, besides that one game, what has he done in his NFL career, right? So you have to kind of put that into the equation, but I think Jerry Judy's going to have a good game, but I just can't sit Dearness Johnson. I really do think that there's going to be a high-scoring game up against the Patriots. I do agree, though, that the Broncos and Eagles game may be a little bit close because the Broncos just absolutely destroyed the Cowboys, and I would be shocked if they continue to ride that high. I think there's definitely a big letdown spot for them. Maybe they win the game, but obviously I don't expect that ferocious offense as well as defense that we saw last week up against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
I think that's a sneaky shootout game in Denver today.
I
really do, just because I think Jalen Hurts, I mean, we know what he is. He's the garbage man. He loves getting those late fourth quarter points to make sure that he has a good fantasy day. But I thought it was interesting. You brought up Noah Fant. Philadelphia is the worst team against tight ends in the league. I mean, I think Noah Fant's going to be involved. I think if you have Noah Fant and Jerry Jeudy, it's going to be hard not to start them, in my opinion, unless you have, the Travis Kelce's, George Kittles of the world and everything like that. Like I said, I think there's sneaky shootout potential in Denver today. But, I mean, I think Nick nailed it. I mean, Dearness Johnson has to be started in every league that you have him, just for the sheer fact of opportunity. He is going to get 20 to 25 touches in this game because they have nobody else in that backfield. And when you have a running back locked into 20 to 25 touches, you're virtually going to start that guy every week unless it's Carlos Hyde.
That's just from last week?
Yeah,
it's definitely not. Yeah.
He got so many carries. The thing is, he just stinks. I didn't put that into the equation.
Well, I mean, Myles Gaskin might have had the greatest fantasy line of all time last week. 20 carries for 34 yards. How do you do that?
What's his name? The Hunt guy should have scored that touchdown, in my opinion. Robert Hunt, that touchdown he scored. He was a fucking monster.
Put him in at tight end.
Probably better than Gesicki with
for anybody
0
who
catches
had
on 7
Gaskin.
targets. Sorry.
No, it's brutal. Go ahead. I'm joining in on it because I had Gaskin because I had to sit Chubb this week because of COVID. So here's Gaskin's opportunity to shine for me. And of course, Nick nails the game, but the one guy that I needed in all of that came up short. All right, Michael on the super chat, a couple of super chats. We're going to bang through in the final 20 or so here before everything locks in. Michael on the super chat. Nick, we'll start here. RC as well. Kenyon Drake or Ramondre Stevenson. Talking a little bit about Stevenson here. Flex PPR.
All right. My thoughts here is that I would go with Stevenson. We have seen Stevenson. He's obviously not, in my opinion, as good as Damian Harris, but he is a guy that will be involved catching passes as well. I do worry slightly about Brandon Bolden taking a chunk of that workload away, but I do believe that in this situation, if this is a high-scoring game like I believe, I think Ramondre Stevenson will be a big part of this Patriots offense, and I expect a big game out of him. So I would definitely lean with him over. Who was the other option? It was Kenyon Drake. I don't love Kenyon Drake. This Raiders offense really confused me. The whole Raiders team confuses me. So my lean would be to go with Stevenson. I think Stevenson could have a top 12-esque performance if he's able to find his way into the end zone, which I think is possible in this game because Jacoby Myers never scores. So they got to go somewhere.
Yeah, JJ Taylor, I mean, is a guy that averages like 2.5 yards per carry. He's going to be the primary backup in terms of running the football. You mentioned Brandon Bolden. Yeah, he's going to steal some catches and everything. But again, it comes back to opportunity in fantasy. That's what you want. And Stevenson is going to have a ton of it with no Damian Harris. I mean, he's going to have between 15 and 20 carries today. It's one of those games too where Nick is slowly talking me into this just because of his track record this week. He's on fire. You know what I'm saying? He's slowly talking me into this in terms of maybe this being a shootout. I like Ramondre Stevenson's quite a bit this week, so I'm definitely starting him over Kenyon Drake because I'm going to be honest, I'm trying to stay away from the Raiders as much as possible outside of Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
All right, let's.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna make a joke about you might want to stay out of their emails too, because then you'll get sued by John Gruden. But maybe that's a little too deep.
No, that's fine. I don't think it was as deeper than the joke you hit earlier. So
I think the Chipotle one was better though, if we're being honest.
That's what I'm saying.
That was definitely better. But
to be fair though, I jumped in and then the timing was off. It's like, some shitty act in front of you. And now Nick's like, dude, you just killed the crowd for me. So
no. It wasn't that good. In my head, it sounded better. You know, when you think about something like, wow, that sounds great. And then you say it, you're like, oh, that sucked. That was basically what that joke was.
Story of my life.
All right, RC. Ryan's back with a super chat. Appreciate it. As always, we'll get to Shane's here as well and more starter sits. Flex, Bolden with Stevenson in as your RB2. So if you have, does that make sense?
Yeah, you're starting both of the Patriots backs.
Correct. Would you flex Bolden with Stevenson already in as your RB2?
Yeah, I don't think I'd mind that just because it is PPR. Bolden is one of those guys where with Mac Jones at the QB spot, I think he could get, 6 to 8 targets. There you go. He's probably going to catch a lot of them since they're going to be running back targets, catches 5 passes for 40 yards, maybe 30 yards. You're at 8 points right there. And who says he doesn't get into the end zone? So I'm okay with that strategy and just locking up the Patriots backfield in a pretty solid matchup when it comes down to it. The Cleveland Browns are a lot worse against the run than people think. Their defense is a little overhyped. As long as you can get past Myles Garrett, you're fine. Easier said than done, obviously, but I don't hate the idea at all. I'd probably go with it if that was my best option. I wouldn't worry about starting 2 Patriots running backs.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fine starting 2 players on the same team, especially if I think Brandon Bolden's going to see a decent amount of usage, which I do. So I'm fine doing that. I don't love it, but there's a lot worse options, in my opinion, than Brandon Bolden this week.
Shane on the super chat, Dearness or McLaurin, PPR. No, that Bucs defense is brutal. Nick, you want a shot?
Yeah, Shane.
Pass defenses, sorry, not rush defense.
Yeah, Shane, I would go with the problem here is I think McLaurin is finally going to have that really big game, but I don't think you can sit Dearness Johnson in a lot of scenarios. So I'm going with Dearness Johnson. I'm firing him up this week. I'm really excited to see how he plays. I hope he plays good. Otherwise, my bank account will run dry. So let's go ahead and play Dearness Johnson here.
Man, I'm one of those people that I want to start my studs every chance I get right there. And Terry McLaurin is a stud.
Yeah.
It would absolutely kill me if he goes off for that game that we've all wanted from Terry McLaurin and I had to start him over Dearness Johnson. Even if Dearness Johnson does good, I feel like there's a way that I could get Terry McLaurin into my lineup. Maybe there's not. Maybe you're just that loaded, Shane. If so, congratulations on that chip that you'll be winning here in a few weeks. But it kills me to say it, but I'm going with Nick on this. I'm starting Dearness Johnson. I'm all in on him this week. I think, again, he has RB1 overall upside this week. Yeah. He could be the best running back on the week. And when you have that kind of upside and the kind of workload we all expect him to have against the Patriots defense that, yeah, they're solid, but they're nothing to really worry about. I'm going to start Dearness Johnson in this situation and throw up in the bucket right next to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's take Dearness out of this because I think throughout the show, both of you guys, and I even tried to pull you away, RC, and appeal to your love for Judy here. And neither one of you guys are budging, by all means. So I get that. I respect that wholeheartedly. But the conversation about McLaurin, I think, is interesting. Gibson, McKissick, maybe McKissick more so than Gibson to a lesser extent. And I say this on the heels. I saw this from Schefter. Brandon Sheriff's back. Washington is 0-12 in the last 3 years without their all-pro right guard, right? Have you seen this?
No.
The win percentage over the last 7 years with him on the field is 49.4. Without him, it's 13.6. So my point being is that you give him a 50% shot as opposed to a 13% shot of winning this game. How does the game script play out where Washington is either in or ahead of this game. Both pass defenses are they're hideous. Yeah. So wouldn't it stand to reason that Washington is either hanging on in a higher scoring game, or maybe Tampa's defense just hasn't woken up and they're up early in a higher scoring game? If that's the case, then clearly guys like McLaurin and McKissick, I would think, RC, have a significantly higher bump of a value.
No, I think McKissick is a great play today. I truly do. We've talked about this for the past few weeks. Like, what the hell is Washington doing? Just put Antonio Gibson on IR. Let him get healthy. You're going nowhere.
Yeah.
Just let him get healthy, man. Like, what are we doing? We're talking about one of the best potential fantasy football backs there is, and you're just wasting him at this point and not letting him get healthy. But to your point about just the defenses being awful in the secondary on both sides, when it comes back to, and I shift back to Dearness Johnson, as you obviously get mad about that and you're shifting us away, we always go back to Dearness. We have to go back. Jeez. It's Dearness Johnson week here, okay? No, but in all seriousness, I think it comes down to this for me. I try and steer clear of trusting Tyler Heineke at any kind of point. Like, I mean, Taylor Heineke is just bad. I mean, he's not good. He has suffered in terms of making Terry McLaurin look bad. Does that mean Terry McLaurin could go off today for 7 catches, 125 yards and a TD because he's playing the Bucs? Absolutely. And I'm trying to start him, but in that situation, Dearness Johnson or Terry McLaurin, it's Dearness Johnson week, baby. You got to start him.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know. I kind of do like Terry McLaurin now. You're kind of talking me into him, but I'm not going to.
Oh, see, that's all. Now, what does that mean, though? Does that mean that you liking McLaurin means he's going to have 3 targets, 0 grabs, and 20 yards, or?
Yeah. Probably. I think he's in one of my lineups, so you just got to know he's going to shit the bed big time. Probably.
AJ Brown, Chipotle type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't touched upon one player that I actually genuinely despise at this point in the season. That we can answer this donation question, but man, oh man, do I hate Mike Williams. That guy has absolutely screwed me over the last 3 weeks. He stinks at this point. He hasn't gotten over 7 half PPR points in 3 weeks. And with that said, he's going to drop 40 today.
Okay, let me ask you specifically, and look, I don't think I'm going up against you right now, so it's not like I'm trying to get ahead of you here by any means. But I'm dealing, and I'm sure other people are dealing with this scenario as well. I have one slot. I have a flex spot open, and it's not going to be a running back here based off of my team. So for the benefit of the doubt, I really just have a couple of wide receivers I can play in. Elijah Moore's out because my only defense is Buffalo, so can't run him. He's done. But Mike Williams is technically in my starting slot right now, Nick, and I'll give you the other names, and you can tell me honestly, and I'm going to appeal to your hatred first of Williams for a more objective response to RC following. But it might be the same answer. So different means to the same end. Williams, Myers, or Van Jefferson? Honestly, I know you despise Williams like I do at this point from the productivity or lack thereof, but Williams, Van Jefferson, or Myers?
Yeah, I would play Williams, but again, you're just hoping for the upside. Like, what's Jacoby Myers worth if he can't score? And then Van Jefferson, he has the upside, but I still do think, unlike you guys, that Odell will get a little bit more work. So I would probably just lean with Mike Williams and hope that finally he breaks the curse and scores like 25 plus points in this game. I feel like you're going to regret it heavily if you bench him. And that's been my conundrum for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm going Van Jefferson, I think, on this one. Again, wow. I don't think Odell's going to play much. Like, I really don't. Like, it doesn't make much sense to me. In the sense of, especially when you have a bye week next week, if you're the Rams, why would you throw him out there after maybe two practices, and try and risk that in terms of him even knowing what's going on in that offense in a game that the Rams, I mean, they don't need to win it. They're obviously the favorites and everything. They have a little bit of wiggle room, but it wouldn't hurt going into the bye, 8-2 or whatever they'd be. So I'd probably start Van Jefferson. The reason I'm saying that is I'm with Nick. I am so just pissed off at Mike Williams at this point. Every time I try and play him, this man just lays a goose egg for me, and I'm just tired of it. And yeah, I fully expect him to go off for 40 on my bench when that happens, but I'm going to start Van Jefferson because he's in a great offense. I think he's going to get 6 to 8 targets in this game, and I think he'll get 75 yards and maybe a TD to boot. And if it's in PPR, that's all you can ask for from a wide receiver 2 or flex option.
All right, let's, as we wind down here, a couple of super chats and some more regular start sits here for you guys. And again, hit that thumbs up button, please. Make sure you're subscribed as well. That does wonders for us to the Fantasy Football channel. Law Dog on the super chat. Thank you. Appreciate that. RC, let's throw it right back. Renfro, first time he's been involved here, or Stevenson, who we've talked about, full PPR.
I'm going to go Ramondre Stevenson again. Just the opportunity. He's going to get 15 to 20 touches. So when you have that kind of opportunity in a backfield where outside of maybe Bolden, who's going to catch the passes for the Patriots, I'm going to start Stevenson in that regard.
Hey,
yeah. Oh, you can go. Sorry.
Go ahead, Nick. I just saw your message. So if you want to answer the super chat and then go into what we saw with the latest news with Arizona, let's do that.
Yeah, okay. So DeAndre Hopkins as well as Kyler Murray are out in that game at 4:05. So don't play Kyler. Obviously, don't play DeAndre Hopkins. I don't hate Colt McCoy, but I think the receivers will be fine, but I'm not playing Colt McCoy. And the answer to this question, I would go Stevenson as well, but I do think that Renfro is a much safer option if you're looking for safety. Considering without Ruggs, he's just been getting a lot of targets.
Right. And I think that's a great point, especially without Ruggs there and the expectation of it while they're kind of iffy. Steven on the super chat, and then we can get back to this stuff with Arizona. So, Nick, let's start RC as well, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more in depth about Arizona, take some more questions before we get out. Pick 2, Carter, D-Will, Muth, Beasley, Ayuk.
Gotcha. So I'd go Carter. I was very high on Carter last week. I expected a humongous game. And then once Magic Mike White ended up getting hurt in that game, then obviously everything went downhill. Or for Carter, I mean, they still kept in the game with Josh Johnson. But I do think with Mike White in, he's just going to dump the ball off a lot to Michael Carter. So I'm expecting a very solid showing out of him. So I'm definitely going Carter. And then outside of that, it's kind of up in the air. I like Beasley. I like Ayuk. I like Freiermuth a lot, but I don't think I would want to play him as my flex. So my answer is going to be Darrell Williams. CH is still not back. I mean, the Chiefs are probably a dead team, but in reality, they keep sucking me back in. I expect Darrell Williams to be all right. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, Frank Gore's great-grandson, Derek Gore, is no worry at all for Darrell Williams. So go ahead and play Darrell Williams. What do you think, RC?
I think Nick summed it up perfectly. I know people probably want to hear about potential replacements for Kyler and D-Hop. So I think he literally nailed it. I'm starting Carter and Williams as well in those in that situation.
Yeah. All right. So real quick, before we hit a couple on the way out, as far as Murray and D-Hop being out, and Scott, thanks for the super chat. We appreciate that as well. Nick mentioned as far as, don't start these guys around it. Now we start to look at the ancillary spot, right? Kirk, Rondell Moore, I think becomes super interesting, especially for deeper leagues. What are you doing approaching this Arizona offense, knowing that 2 main vehicles in it are out?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if you asked RC or me, but I think that a lot of people are going to be on Rondell Moore, and I think that may be a huge swing and a miss. I'd much rather pivot to maybe Christian Kirk in this situation. I do think that there's going to be a lot of James Conner, though, in this game. So if you have James Conner, be very excited for a huge showing this week.
I think,
for the record, I did ask RC. But...
Oh, well, yeah. Selfish Dolphins fans. Who's surprised? No, I mean, he's just living off that high still. No, I think Eno Benjamin's an interesting name as well. Like, I think that James Conner does have that injury history, and I fully expect him to be the bell cow. But that's a beat the waiver wire type guy right there in terms of Eno Benjamin. We know James Conner has had that injury history. He's going to get some work even behind James Conner. So I think he gets a little bit of work with Colt McCoy in there as well. He's an interesting start in terms of if you're desperate at a flex, but I do wonder if maybe this is like everybody going to Rondell Moore and then just some random wide receiver for the Cardinals goes off in this game, right? Like you said, Nick, I mean, I love Rondell Moore, loved him at Purdue, one of the best freshman seasons of all time in terms of NCAA. But, I mean, I just feel like they're going to try and take that away, and then somehow this is going to be like an A.J. Green type game, right? Just right. Like, I don't know. Maybe the old men unite in this regard, and Colt McCoy and A.J. Green, just connect, and it's just like a, retirement home fest in Arizona. Makes sense, too. I mean, people retire out there, so there you go.
That's true. It is a destination, by all means. All right, let's jam a couple of them in here before we get out and get as many start sits. Adam from England, pick 2: Swift, Fournette, Aaron Jones, or Jamal Williams. Nick,
that's a lot of players. I would go Swift and Aaron Jones.
Right there with you. Jamal Williams is out this week.
Yeah, he was out of the question anyways. Richard Sherman not playing today as well.
There you go. Late info coming in.
Confirmed.
Isn't the game starting like Williams, 2 seconds?
Yep. Williams with Denver or Ingram, RC?
Ingram.
Yeah, I'd go Ingram.
How
as
about
well.
this? Yeah, I think that's Goddard or Freiermuth. DFS, I'd go Freiermuth, but season long, RC. Freiermuth or Goddard?
I'm going Goddard. I think there's a shootout potential in Denver today.
I'm going Freiermuth. I don't know. The whole Eagles offense pisses me off. They finally figured out how to run the ball after Miles Sanders gets hurt. It's just annoying. So I would go ahead and go with Freiermuth. Did you see Goddard's fucking shirt get ripped off last week? Hulk Hogan style.
Yeah.
The whole thing like went flying. That was pretty sick.
Yeah, you
That
still have your
was-
shirt on. People came here to see you shirtless.
It's okay. Next time I'll show up shirtless.
All right.
Wow.
It's a little
We
drafty
may have
in
to
here.
end on that high note right there. I don't think we could do anything more. That was perfectly timed. We didn't even write that. All right. Thanks again for everybody hanging with us. Thanks to all who have popped in from Nick's stream earlier. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at RCMB323, at Notorious FNTSY, at Shander Show. For me, thanks to Chris. And apparently IHOP is a 24/7 joint, so take that into account. For producing Yahoo, click those 2 links below and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe on your way out. We'll be back next week, week 11 in the NFL. But until then, good luck.
Good luck, friends.